Hi stamping friends, welcome back. It's Sandy here, and today I'm sharing the Simon Says Stamp April card kit. It's Follow the Rainbow. This is my favorite set to get each month. There's always great crafting goodness inside, including a little bit of sweetness. And this month we have a package of the ink cubes from Simon. These are the Island Crush Hybrid ink cubes, a jar of their awesome white embossing powder, a $5 off coupon for my next order, 4 of the Susie watercolor cards, and these are printed on the Rainbow watercolor or Ranger watercolor paper, so you can use Copics or watercolors on them. The exclusive Follow the Rainbow stamp set, Love the Umbrella Girl, and there's all kinds of wonderful support sentiments in this set. I'm here for you, rain or shine, thinking of you, don't lose hope, bright days are coming, many that are very relevant to what's going on right now. There is a couple of envelopes, one in white and one in island blue, and these are the peel and stick envelopes, so no licking required. And there's 12 double-sided 6x6 Whimsy Stamp rainbow pattern papers. These are just lovely, and they're nice and thick too. Next, we have the Simon Says Stamp Clouds for Days stencils. If you follow me, you know that I've been using this quite a bit. I love this stencil. It's got 4 sides, and each one of them are different, and then you also have full clouds in the center. And I'm going to follow the video with some cards that I've made using this. And there's 5 sheets of cardstock in here as well: dull pink, thick white, royal purple, and island blue. So this is an awesome set, and it's still available, so hop on and order yours before it's sold out. For my first card, I'm going to use the stencil and a couple of oxides. I am using Fossiled Amber and Hickory Smoke. I decided on the Fossiled Amber. I wanted a little bit of sunshine at the top of the clouds, just kind of to remind you that there's sunshine coming after the old rainstorm. And I'm just cleaning off the stencil because I'm going to switch over to the darker color, and that's Hickory Smoke. And I am going to use probably all 4 sides of this stencil, and I'm going to create the background clouds. This is a nice light gray, so you just have to tap it onto your scrap paper once and then blend it in. And I'm working my way from the top to the bottom of the card. You'll notice that I leave it quite light on the bottom of the card. That's because I know that I'm going to stamp my sentiment down there, and I want to be able to read it, so I don't want to put a dark background behind it, so I stay quite light. And I'm going to come back and just add a little bit of gray to it, and this is just dulling up the white a little bit. The white was very stark compared to the rest of the card, and so it lightens up those clouds and fills in that white a little bit too. So I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to stamp my my umbrella girl on top of my background, and I'm using the Gina K Amalgam Black because it's waterproof and Copic friendly, so I can use it for pretty much any application that I plan to use. And I am going to be using a few Copics just on her legs and her heels and the little puddle that she's standing in. And I'm using my stamp scrubby to clean off my stamp. I'm going to remove the sentiment, and I'm going to take my art piece out of the MISTI because I'm going to stamp again on a piece of the patterned paper, and I'm going to do a little bit of paper piecing. There's lots of different patterns in here, but I don't want one with stripes in it. I want something that's kind of random for my umbrella. So I've picked 2 choices, and I'm kind of, which one am I going to use? I kind of like this one. It looks like it has raindrops in it. That's what kind of prompted me to go here. So I'm adding my stamp over top and where I want the umbrella to be. I want kind of that orange and purple section up there near the top, and it's got a little bit of pink in it, and I matched the shoes up with that. You'll see a little bit down the road. So I'm attaching it to the lid of my MISTI and just stamping with my black ink just the umbrella part, hopefully, giving it a real good rub, and then I'm going to cut that out. I decided to do a second layer of ink just to make sure I had a nice dark image. And I'm going to also paper piece her dress. So right now I'm auditioning this piece of paper. I decided on this blue, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to pop the pattern paper into my MISTI and line up my stamp just where I want that little skirt to be in that blue section there. Close my MISTI, that attaches my stamp to the lid, and then I'm just going to stamp the skirt. I end up stamping a whole bunch of the umbrella too, so instead of wasting that piece of paper, I am going to ink the whole thing and use it on one of the next cards. Why waste it? It's too pretty. So there we go, it's all cut out, and I'm just going to use some white glue and attach this to my art piece. These were really simple to fussy cut out, and this pattern paper is quite thick, so it's got lots to hold on to, plus it gives a nice layer when you go to attach it to your cards. So that's a nice easy way of adding color, faster than using Copics. And so I'm just going to grab these three colors and I'm going to do her legs. So I start with the E34, which is the darkest, and that's going to give me the shadow. So I'm just going down the left side, and then I'm going to come back in with the medium color, which I believe is the E50, add a little shadow under her skirt and then a little bit more to the right, and then I'm filling in with the E53, which is the lightest color, and blending it out. And I decide that she needs fuchsia colored high heels. I had those when I used to work in the corporate world, and they were my favorite shoes. So I'm using the RV17 just to give her some fuchsia colored shoes, and it matches with the fuchsia drops that are in the umbrella. And then I'm going to grab a couple of blues, and I use the B02 and the B05 just to color in the puddle that is underneath her. I decided on the blue because it matched her skirt. And there we go, fast and easy. This card piece was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm attaching it to a top folding A2 card. Sorry, it was 4 by 5 1/4, which left a 1/4 inch border around. So there we go, card 1's finished. For card 2, I'm going to use the smooshing technique. So I got out my Waffle Flower Media Mat, and I'm going to add some ink to the surface. I'm going to spritz it, and I'm going to lay my piece of watercolor paper right into it. I'm cleaning up that darker color, and I'm going to heat set this because I don't want it to blend with the other two colors. If you heat set it, they kind of go on top of each other, which is kind of fun. And so that was chipped sapphire. This one is seedless preserves. I'm doing exactly the same thing, spritzing and then just popping this in where I want the color to be. And I'm getting rid of any big puddles that I'm kind of picking up. And again, heat setting this. And for the third color, I want it to be in the grays because it's a stormy sky. So I come back in with the Hickory Smoke. And I'm going to do the same thing, add some ink right directly to my mat, a bunch of spritz, and then just smoosh my paper right into it. And I kind of push and bend the paper a little bit to get where I want the smooshes. And I'm going to water it down a little bit more because, again, I want a lighter bottom so that my sentiment stands out when I go to stamp it there. There we go, getting rid of any puddles, and you want to heat set that as well to get the card nice and dry. And this paper will curl on you a little bit. This is the Ranger watercolor paper, so it's quite thick as you go through the drying process. If it curls, just turn it over and heat it from the back, and that will flatten it out. So I'm popping this back into my MISTI, and I'm going to be stamping my image on the right-hand side of this card front. And again, I am using the Gina K Amalgam Black ink, and I'm trying to decide on a sentiment. Here we go, found the one I wanted. Lining that up and trying to pop everything in there. This is about the time I want one of my round magnets instead of these long ones. Trying to get it right in there, right where I want it. Lining everything up, making sure my sentiment's straight. Closing the lid. And one of the fun parts about the MISTI is you can do your sentiment and your main image at the same time. And again, inking it up in the black. And this is watercolor paper, so it's a little bit lumpy, plus it's got texture to it. So you probably have to stamp this 2 or 3 times to get a nice dark image. And I'm pushing really, really hard on this to make sure that it gets into all the little grooves and nooks and crannies on this watercolor paper. It does take a couple of times, but you do want a nice dark image. So, okay, so now I'm bringing in another piece of cardstock, and this is just a Neenah Solar White, and I believe it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm stamping up the entire image again, and I'm stamping this onto the paper again a couple of times, making sure that it's nice and dark. And we're going to be doing a little bit of coloring on this one. So I'm starting with her skirt, and I'm going to be doing the purple. So we've got the V section, V12, V15, V17. Starting with the darkest, the V17, and I'm doing the outlines and the border. I'm coming in with the V17. That's my middle color, blending out that dark a little bit and pulling it out a little bit as well. And then I'm going to blend all of them with the V12, which is the lightest. For her shoes, I decided to go purple this time, so I did the middle color, the V15, because of course they have to match. And then I went back and did her little belt, and I did that in the medium and the darks, so the V17 and the V15. And then added the light in the two little stripes in between. And I did the same thing for her legs. I did the E34, the E50, and the E53, and I blended them exactly the same way as the previous card. So just a little bit of coloring, and see how I'm matching up the colors to the background. So I picked the kind of the fuchsia color and the purple that was created with the distressed oxides, and I'm just going to quickly cut this out. And just a little note, I used a craft knife for the center in between her legs because I wanted that to be the lighter gray, and I can come back in and color that with a Copic afterwards if I want as well. So a little tip about when you're cutting these out, I use my Tombow black marker and go around the outside cut edge, and that adds nice detail and a finished edge so that you don't see the white, because I'm going to be paper piecing this and gluing it down onto my card front. So again, some Tombow white glue just to add these two pieces. Instant color, gotta love it. And then the piece that I colored. And there we go. I'm going to leave everything kind of in the grays. So again, I'm using the Tombow multi-purpose glue on the back of this because I'm attaching it to the card front, and it is the same size as the card front, so I need a couple of seconds to be able to squish that around, make sure that it's on there straight, and then I just stuck a handle on top of it to lay it down and let it dry. And there's the finished piece. The third card is a super 10 minutes to wow easy. I picked a piece of the pattern paper, and this one is the one with slight lines in it, and I am going to use the embossing powder that came in the kit. I love Simon Says embossing powder, and my bin actually has 4 of these poured into it. I use it all the time. So I'm stamping with Versamark ink, and I am going to do the sentiment and the umbrella lady at the same time. And I'm doing everything in white. So stamp the image, give it a real good rub so that you have nice transfer of the Versamark ink, which is a special ink that holds the embossing powder in place until you have a chance to heat set it. So covering the entire thing, shaking off any of the excess, and then I'm just going to heat set this. I just noticed the pattern paper on the other side is really pretty too. That's why the pause. Okay, so this one's really straightforward. I'm just adding some adhesive to the back of this one, and again mounting it to a card front that I made with the white that is in the kit. And the white is the 120 pound ultra thick from Simon Says Stamps. And if you've never tried this before, it is fabulous for card bases. So my designer paper, or my pattern paper, was 4 by 5 1/4, and then the card base was 4 1/4 by 11, scored and folded at 5 1/2. Now I'm making sure that my gel pen works on this cardstock because it's got kind of a shiny finish to it, because I want to add a little bit more rain and a little bit more puddles to the front of the art piece, just to make it a little bit more dramatic on the left-hand side of the card. There we go, a couple more squiggles, and I'm done. Card number 4 ended up being my over-the-top, what the heck were you thinking card. I started again with a piece of Neenah cardstock because I knew I was going to be doing some Copic coloring. This is the 80 pound, and I'm stamping my image And again, I'm doing it in the Gina K Amalgam Black ink. That way I can either watercolor or Copic marker and not worry about it running. So you end up with one ink pad that serves you for a multiple of techniques. Next, I'm going to take some masking paper. This is from Inkadinkado. Gina K also sells a really nice masking tape. And I'm going to stamp the image onto this as well because I need to mask it off to do some stenciling in the background. So giving that a good rub, and then I'm pulling it out and I'm going to cut this. And you want to cut it right on the black line when you do your cutting out. And I'm not going to bore you with that. So here we go. It's all cut out. I'm going to peel off the blue backing, and then I'm going to attach this hopefully very straight over top of my stamped image on my card front. I get it pretty good there. Just have to flick that bottom a couple of times to make sure that her legs are right where they're supposed to be. There we go. So I'm using 3 distressed oxides this time: Stormy Sky, Faded Jeans, and Chipped Sapphire, starting at the bottom with the lightest, and again leaving the very, very bottom because I'll be adding a sentiment down there as well. And I'm using the lovely stencil again and turning it so that it's not all the same shape. That's the good part about having 4 sides. Otherwise, all your clouds look exactly the same. So I'm switching over, and you can also move it back and forth across the card. Just by moving it a ½ inch will give you a different image. So here I go with the medium blue, coming back over and flipping the stencil again and angling it a little bit this time. That way I have got different dimensions going up both sides as well. And see how it gets a little bit darker while it gets up there. And then I'm going to go to the darkest for the very top. And just adding my blue in there. And when I'm finished this, I decide, okay, my clouds are a little bit on the white side, same as card number 1. So I'm going back to the medium ink, and I am going to color some of this in to try and tone down that white a little bit. I'm also going around the edges to try and make a little bit of a frame with the ink as well. And again, along the bottom, just to dull that white a little bit and add a little bit more blue. And this is a really nice, fast and easy way of doing this, and these blending brushes work really well for this technique. Okay, so I'm getting really close to being happy with this, and then the next step is going to be I need to peel off. I got a fingerprint up in that top left-hand corner, so that's why I'm kind of going at that hard. And I heat set this so that I didn't keep getting fingerprints, and I'm also holding it with a piece of tissue because I have very warm hands, so I end up leaving very large fingerprints on the Distressed Oxide inks. So peel that back, and you'll see that you have this beautiful white image that you can still color without having any distressed oxides mixed in with it. And then you can take your peel off and you can attach your mask to it and save it for another card. I usually get 3 or 4 cards out of that, and I'm fixing another fingerprint. They drive me crazy. And I don't plan on putting any embellishments on this card, so I really did need to fix it. So for the blues, I am going to be using I'm working on the umbrella first, and so I'm going to work my way around with the different colors. And for the blues, it's B26, B24, and B16. And you can do Copics 2 ways. This way, I am flooding with the light color, and then I'm adding the medium and the dark, and then I'm coming back with the light and blending it all together. That works. Next, I'm coming in with my turquoises. This is BG 11, 13, and 49. And this time I'm showing you the other way. I'm starting with the dark color, and then I'm going to the medium, which is the 13. And then I'm going to blend this all together with the lightest one, which is the 11. I love these 3 colors. You see me use this on an awful lot of cards. For the greens, I'm using YG03, YG17, and YG67. And again, I'm doing the light to dark. So I'm flooding with the lightest one first. And then I'm going to come back in with the two darker colors and add my shadows. And then come back with the light color and blend it out. I kind of find I do this a lot, especially if I know that I need to do a lot of blending, because it gives me 2 layers of color. And I have a better time blending with the 2 layers of color. I think it liquefies onto the paper a little bit better and helps to blend the ink a little bit better. Now we're going into the yellows. Y15, Y17, and Y38. Even though they do look orange, it does turn out yellow, and it goes really yellow when I put the orange beside it. So, but I wanted the bright colors. So again, flooding with the lightest. Don't I color fast? I had to speed this up. It was like 2 hours long, so I hope you don't mind that I sped it up a little bit. I didn't do it too much, only 200%, so you still get the idea of what I was doing and how I was coloring. And this umbrella is really fun to color with all the different rainbow colors. You can just grab your Copics and go to town. Okay, I'm coming back in and coloring, blending with the lightest color. And so now I'm coming to the oranges, and what I used for the oranges was the Y38, the YR04, and the YR07. And right now, they both look orange, I know that. And I got a little scared at this point, thinking, oh my gosh, these two colors are just way too similar. But I decided to carry on with it and see what happened, because if I didn't like it, I could just stamp another one, color it, cut it out, and put it over top. I could still save my background. So if you get stuck in that predicament, don't worry too much. It's easy to fix. So I'm adding some more shadows down the bottom of this, just because this one is at the bottom of the umbrella and it's a little bit closer. So I wanted some straight on detail. That's why you see me doing more shadowing. And then coming back with the light color and blending it all in. And at this point, I'm happy again because it's orange. There we go. On to the reds. And for the reds, I did R24, R46, and R59. And this time I'm doing dark to light. So I'm adding my shadow first with the darkest color. Oh, nope, maybe I used the light one. I can't see where 24. Okay, nope, that was flooding with the light color. Sorry about that. And then bringing in my medium and my dark to build my shadows. This dark is really dark, so I try and not use very much of it, because the darker colors are a little bit harder to blend, I find. You really got to work at it, as you will see here. So blending in with my 24. On to my pinks, and for the pinks it's RV13, RV14, and RV19. Starting with 13, flooding the whole piece. Adding some shadows. And this is with the 14 if you can't see the lid. And then coming back in with the darkest, the RV19, for the deepest of the shadows. And then coming back and blending with the lightest color, which is the 13. And this does end up going quite dark, but that's okay. So our last color is purple. And again, I use the same ones that I used on the previous cards, the V12, the V15, and the V17. Flooding with the light. Adding the shadow with the medium. And then the deeper shadow with the dark. And coming back and blending with the light. And the little button in the center I decided to do in the darkest of the yellows. So you'll see me just pop back in at the end and add that just to the center. There we go, the umbrella's all done. So then I decided that, okay, let's do the legs. And again, the legs are done exactly the same as the previous ones. E34, E50, and E53, and back to doing the darkest on the left-hand side, and then shadowing a little bit and blending with the medium, and blending that all together with the light. For her skirt, I decided to do the purples. So again, back with the V12, the V15, and the V17. And I colored it exactly the same way as the previous card, starting with the dark shadows with the darkest marker, and that's the 17. And then I'm going back in with the V15 and blending a little bit over top of the dark and pulling it out a little bit to the medium. Just going right over top to help blend it in. And then I am blending it with the lightest, which is the 12. And for her belt this time, I decided to go to the grays. So I'm going to use a C3 and a C5 just to make her belt a little bit of a different color. Getting ahead of myself here. First of all, I did the shoes. So I did them in the medium pink, the RV14. I forgot to put the lid down. Sorry about that. And then for the blues, I decided to go back in and do the water. So the blues are B26, B24, and B16. So I'm blending those together. And at this point, I kind of look at it and go, okay, back to the purple, because I forgot the little piece at the top of her top that was just peeking out underneath the umbrella. And then here's where I use the grays. I show you 3, but I only use 2. I don't use the lightest one. I use the C3 and the C5. So I did an outline, and then coming back in with the C3. And then I use the lightest of the purples in between. Well, actually the middle, the V15. Okay, I decided I didn't like the water. Couldn't figure out why she was sitting in a puddle, so I decided that she's going to walk through a puddle. So I extended it a little bit, pulled my colors back out, and went back in with all 3 of them. And then at the end of this, I grab one of the Copic outlines, and I think it was the 03, and I'm going to add the outline to the edge of this and a little bit of the swirly, the detailed swirly in the center. There you go. It's an 03, and I just extended the black line and some of the swirlies. I couldn't figure out why she was standing in a puddle. It kind of didn't make sense to me. Anyway, there you go. So then I decide that this little spot in the middle needs to be colored. So I used the C3, and that ended up blending quite nicely with the background. And I didn't quite get the stencil in the right, or the mask in the right spot, so I used that same one just to fix a little bit going down her leg. Then I'm going to mask this up again because I decide that I want to splatter the background. And of course it's distressed oxides, so they're activated by water, so I can give myself raindrops just by splattering on here. So I cover her back up again, spritz some water onto the acrylic handle, and then just use a paintbrush to splatter some water all over. And I let it sit for a few seconds just so that it activates the ink, and then just pick up the dabs of water with a tissue. I think that just really added to the background. Distressed it out a little bit. I like it. So then peel off that piece again, and be very careful about peeling it. They do tear. And I popped this back into my MISTI. I had already white heat embossed the word friend, and then I'm going to stamp the second part of the sentiment underneath where that's going to be. I love the MISTI for lining up sentiments. I used to always stamp my sentiments crooked. And you can check just with the grid on the lid. So you can place it down and then check with the grid and make sure that it's straight. So there we go. I'm going to add a little bit of the Simon Says foam tape onto the back of my black sentiment. Just want to pop it up a little bit because the entire rest of the card is flat, so this adds a little bit of dimension to the card. And then I'm attaching it to a top folding A2 card base done in the 120 pound cardstock. And here's a quick way of getting it on nice and straight. Use your Score Buddy. There we go. There's my finished card. Here's all 4 of them. I had a great time. I just spent an entire afternoon making these cards and I really enjoyed it. I share all of the supplies that I used in the links underneath the video, and there's also a link to take you over to my blog. And I hope you enjoyed this. Order the kits soon. They're a great deal. And, you know, the supplies are available after the kit sells out, but of course they're back at the regular prices, not the discounted. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And until next time, toodles!